The Bats is back in black and red. Here's your look at McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, Batman Arkham Knight, Earth-2 Batman. In this alternate universe, Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne survived their deadly encounter in Crime Alley years ago, but their young son Bruce was killed instead. Driven by the death of his son, Thomas became Batman, though. This Dark Knight is far deadlier and more ruthless than the vigilante hero his son would have become. Sure, this Thomas Wayne Batman could make the claim that it's the first figure of a Thomas Wayne we've gotten from DC Multiverse, but anybody that has been collecting the DC Multiverse line already know that we've gotten 2 times before a Thomas Wayne figure. Even though it was really the same figure, there was also an unmasked version, both of which we've already had a look at in this channel. So while this being really the 3rd time a Thomas Wayne has been given, this Earth-2 Batman, though, I think is the best of the 3. Before we get a closer look at the figure, though, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the Arkham Knight, Batman from Earth-2. That's a bit of a mouthful. Grabbing, though, the tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands, Thomas Wayne in this case stands 7 inches in height, or the figure's 18 centimeters tall. And wouldn't you know it, Murphy's Law, the 2 figures I would want to have brought in for comparisons would have been those other 2 Thomas Waynes. I can't find where I put either one of them, so I'll have to follow up at least by bringing in some stand-in Batmans. Here's what Bruce Wayne looks like along with his father. Bruce is going to be a lot taller. He's also a lot bigger as well. A slightly smaller, though, Batman. Here's what the new Thomas Wayne Batman from Earth-2 looks like with the DC Rebirth Batman. In this case, when you compare these 2 figures, Thomas Wayne's Batman is a bigger and bulkier looking Bats. Being that both those Thomas Wayne Batmans were rotated out of my displays a while ago, the likelihood that they're sitting inside some random tote is probably quite high. Whereabouts, though, right now remain unknown, so we'll have a look at the accessories instead that come included with the Batman from Earth-2. First, the figure comes included with a trading card. Overlook the fact that the trading card is slightly bent in the corners there. It's just the way I was taking it out of the plastic prison. But here's what we get, at least from an illustrated end of things. We actually, instead of getting figure photography, we get ourselves an image of Thomas Wayne, sort of as if he appeared in an animated series. I actually like the way he's colored here. The bold lining of red, of course, the red emblem there in the middle of his chest. It's a nice looking Batman. On the back, though, it is the same image up at the top corner, and in this case, normally we would have read Bruce Wayne as his real name, but in this case, it's actually been swapped out for Thomas Wayne with a very small, easy-to-digest paragraph you can read for yourself. It also happens to be the same thing I read at the beginning of the review. Let's move that to the side. Then the figure also comes included with a display stand. Not much really to report here for the display stand. I mean, it's the same stand that we always get. In this case, we've got the DC logo down below. In this case, the same peg up top corner, and that's going to plug into either one of Thomas Wayne's feet. Can move that to the side as well. Then the figure comes included with a Batarang, and the Batarang is very much an Arkham Knight design. In this case, sadly, no color gets added to this. It's only just the molded black plastic alone. I'm going to flip this around so you can see it from both the sides. They seem to be identical, at least in the way they're sculpted on either side. I would have loved if they could have gone and painted a little bit of like the emblem, for example, in blue, but at least we get ourselves a Batarang. The Batarang does technically fit in either one of Thomas Wayne's hands. You have to, of course, choose which side you're going to put, so we're going to go with this side. Pick the figure up right now. We can go ahead and slide the Batarang, and because the Batarang is a fairly thick Batarang, it fits pretty good in his hand. I suppose you could does survive the blizzard test, so you can tip it upside down. And yeah, again, you can display it on either side. There is no other space for obvious reasons that you can attach it onto the utility belt, so you only can display it in either one of Batman's hands. I'm going to move that to the side. Getting a closer look, though, at Earth-2 Batman, what a fine-looking figure this is. One thing I always really liked about Thomas Wayne's design of Batsuit is it had the colors that you would expect for Batman to be, like the grays, for example, but the grays were dark. You still had the black cowl and you still had the black cape, but then outlined around that, very vampire-like, you had a very red-trimmed collar, or red-trimmed cape. The trimming of red also comes down to a point, kind of again looking like the V for a vampire. Then, of course, you got the red emblem there in the middle. Everything on this figure, what at least there is of color, is vibrantly done on McFarlane's team. Of course, you got the darker black on the inside, the more kind of really dark gray that they've used for the majority of the body. And then on the inside of the cape is also colored that same red. It isn't really the same red. I mean, if you look at it, it's actually kind of more of an orangey red, but at least it's close enough in color, and actually does benefit that the utility belt, for example, not only is a matte finish, but it's also one shade lighter than the cape underneath. So it actually does pop, even though there's really a lot of red. You got the red in the front, and then you got the red in the back, but with this being a matte finish and a softer, lighter color of red, it actually helps to make this stand out a lot more. For like the lower half of Batman's body, if we were just to kind of look from the waist down, there really isn't anything to tell you right away that this is a different looking Batman suit, obviously overlooking the fact he does have the red cape. But I like the head sculpt. I know we kind of looked to the rest of the character's costume, but the head sculpt is really good on this one. Very high ears like we got with Vampire Batman, for example. And in this case, he actually has very stark red, very bright red, vibrant eyes. The skin tone for his face, I would admit, is a little more sicklier, I would say. It does sort of have a jaundiced yellowish tint to it, but it does work quite well for the color scheme that they've given both the head and the cape. The cape, very obviously, you can see is a more shinier black, whereas the cowl would have been more of a matte finish. But I gotta say, like, it's a really good head sculpt for Batman. And see it from the side there. Now, we are also getting, not the Vampire Batman we just recently had a look at, but I think there's also one that we are going to be getting later on. I would imagine it probably is going to be using a very similar head like this, very long ears, very designed similar to the head sculpt we get right here, but it's a really home run hit when it comes to this head sculpt. I really like this one. I also kind of like the idea you can see his nostrils. I don't know why that's something I like so much, but you can actually make out very obviously that Bruce Wayne, or in this case Thomas Wayne, has at least the means to breathe out of his nose. That's always good. For the rest of the figure, though, what little there is of color, at least they make up for it, at least with sculpting. So the parts that are dark gray, for example, they still manage to put in some nice texturing. The texturing looks like it's not just cloth, but rather instead Batman has like an armor suit that he's wearing. Sort of have a woven texturing that they've done here for the bicep that is slightly different than when you look at these little stripes that he has also on his tricep area. And again, he's also got some nice texturing also in here in his gloves, with of course the gauntlet blades sticking out the sides of his gloves there as well. It's again a really nice looking Batman. More the reason I think why I actually rotated the other two Thomas Waynes out of my collection. They were fine for the time that they came out, but since then, with all the stellar, better sculpts I feel the McFarlane team is putting out now, those older figures kind of do start feeling a little dated, don't they? This is a much far superior looking Batman. And again, I'm disappointed that I didn't get the chance to find those other Thomas Waynes, because I would love to have brought in those other two, so you can really see how far we've advanced with sculpting. McFarlane's team, the longer they have the DC licensing for, I think they're just putting out better and better looking sculpted figures. For the articulation here for Batman Earth-2, the head is on a ball joint, so you can rotate it all the way around. Head does look up, and it does look down. And you can rock it back and forth as well. Very easy to move this head. As for the shoulders, even though the cape does drape over top of them, you actually can still move those arms very easily at 90 degrees. You take the arms and move them forward. You can move them back for obvious reasons. The cape is going to get in the way of things. You can swivel Batman's bicep. You actually can double hinge him at the elbow. And you can rotate his hand all the way around. The glove portion actually is just a continuation of just the lower arm that they've used, and they just painted the difference. So, of course, the glove is painted black, and then the rest of his forearm is painted to still match that same dark gray. The thing about his elbows, though, I don't know why I'm drawing everyone's attention to his elbows. The elbows, for some reason, seems to be a lighter color than the rest of the plastic. You know, it's pretty close, but when you're looking at it, you can spot right away that it's a lighter colored plastic than the rest of his body. I'm not, again, sure why the elbow... Again, drawing your attention to his elbow. I'm not sure why the elbow is a different color of plastic than the rest of Batman's body. But still, the upper torso is on a ball joint. As with other Batman before, the figure does have a lower torso articulated point as well. The legs are once again on ratcheted joints, so you can split Batman's legs out. You can take those legs and move them forward. You can move them back. There's a mild swivel at the top of the thigh, only just a mild swivel. Double hinge, though, on the knee. And once again, like the boot is just a continuation of the lower calf, so you're not going to independently be able to rotate that. You can, however, though, move the feet up and down. I did notice, though, this foot's not bad. This foot's starting to develop looseness already, which is a bit of a shame. There is an ankle pivot back and forth, and Batman does have toe articulation, so it's always nice to see that as well. All in all, a better looking Batman than the one we got before. Design is a little bit different, to be fair, than the Thomas Wayne Batmans we got 2 times before. That other previous Thomas Wayne, for example, had holsters on the sides of his legs. This one's done away with it altogether. But the darker color scheme on this one, not to mention, again, sort of those influences, almost like a vampire red that they've used for it, really makes for a very interesting looking Batman, even though this time around it's not Bruce underneath the cowl. While at the moment it may look like Thomas Wayne is trying to dab, I've actually got the figure displayed in a decent enough pose with Batarang in his hand. The Batarang, I think, is too good to be leaving out of displaying with this figure, and normally I would have said that this guy is going to be replacing the other 2 Thomas Waynes that I have on my shelf, but to be fair and honest, I did replace those guys out a long time ago. As we progressively get what I feel to be better and better sculpts from McFarlane's team, what ends up ultimately happening is those older figures I end up removing from my shelf and they end up going back in the totes. Fine figure for its time. Both of the figures were fine for their time, but again, as they seem to hone their skills and McFarlane team put out better and better looking figures, I end up ultimately just putting away some of those more dated Batman figures in favor of the newer ones. This one I'm more than happy to put on display up in the forefront of the rest of my Batman shelf because I really like the color scheme on this guy. Thomas Wayne always had a very imposing color scheme for his costume. Very much dark grays, still had the black cowl and the black cape, but that extra little bit of red goes a long way, not only for the design of the way he looks in the comics, but how well it translates to a figure here from the team. I do like the panel lining that they've done to the front of the chest. I do like that it's also, something I didn't mention in this review, that the line that runs up the side of the cape continues then on and then jets forward sort of into that V formation that he has at the front of the chest, because it also has sort of a vampiric look to it. A vampire design of having the red in there does really work quite well with the more darker demeanor of Thomas Wayne. This one is definitely going to be going on my shelf right after this review. What do you guys think of this figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. And if you already have those other 2 Thomas Waynes, to be fair, a different design altogether, but would you be in favor of replacing those 2 Thomases with the one that we get now from Earth-2, an Arkham Knight? Let me know your thoughts down below, what you guys think of this figure. Also, as well, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the brand new Earth-2 Batman from Batman Arkham Knight. If you guys certainly as well enjoyed this video, want to hit it a like. If you guys also are enjoying the content, you guys want to stick around for more, then make sure if you haven't already done so, it makes no sense whatsoever you already have subscribed. But let's just say you're new here, you've just stumbled onto this channel, and all of the almost 10,000 videos, I know I can't even believe it, almost 10,000 videos that we've done over the last, 13, 15 years. How long have I been doing this? But if you've just now recently stumbled onto this channel, welcome aboard. Thank you for checking this video out. And if you want to stay on board, hit the subscribe button down below and also turn on the bell notification. We have wrapped up, sad to say right now, for Earth-2 Batman, but I'm pleasantly happy to say that we will be looking at some more DC Multiverse stuff in the pipeline coming your way. So make sure you're keeping your peepers peeled. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.